Hi, Chris Parkin here from Retro Camera Club, and I'm just going to take you through a quick tutorial on how to do a triptych in Lightroom. And I'm using Lightroom 5, so if you've got a different version, some of the functionality may not be there, but just give you a heads up on that one. Okay, so obviously you're going to need some images to work with. In this case I'm going with 3 different images, in that I can use this for the Nelson Triptych competition. You can chop up a single image and turn it into a triptych, but that's a little bit of a different kettle of fish that we might get into in another video. So once we've got the 3 images, first things first, because the way I'm going to do the layout of the triptych, I want to make sure that all 3 of these are the same size. In this case it's the aspect ratio that matters, so I'm using a 4:6 aspect ratio. Make sure that that's locked and apply that to all of them, and just make sure your cropping is the same, and that just makes life a lot easier when we come to actually put together the images in the print function, which is what we're going to do now. So if you change your mind and you decide actually I want to get rid of, say, the mark on the face later, you can actually go and do that and re-export in Lightroom, and that's one of the nice things about this. You don't have to go right back to basics and play around from there. So okay, let's go print. Okay, so first things first, it's not rotated our image, it is actually sitting on the page, which is nice, but one thing that isn't working is we've only got one image. So first things first, hold down shift and select all 3. You'll note that it goes from page 1 to 1 of 3, but we don't want 3 images on 3 separate pages, we want them all on the same, so we actually want to make a grid. And if you want a page grid vertical, you can increase the number of rows, and in this case I want it 3 columns across. So that's a reasonable start. I'd like to get a gap in between there, and you can change that by adding cell spacing, and I'd also like to even up the amount of room on the left and right. It looks a bit squashed at the moment, but there's also a lot of space at the top and bottom of the image that I really don't need. So the first thing is to get rid of that, and scroll all the way down here to custom file dimension, and then you can type in the number of inches that you want. In this case I'm not actually too concerned about the number of inches, because I'm going to have to crop the image and resize it later to fit the PSNZ sizing, but what I am going to do is just give myself some room to work. Whoops, not 40, try 4. It's a little bit too thin, actually like some balance in it, so try 8. There we go. And so you can change the size that this is going to display on the main screen, and we'll come back to the resizing in a little while. What I do want to do is squash in each of the images just a little bit so that the border's a little bit more there. One thing that is worth doing is typing the number in rather than doing it by eye, and then you can make sure that it's exactly the same. And in this case I'm going to have it a little bit higher up, so I want the bottom number slightly higher than the top, and that's just going to offset it so there's a little bit more room on the bottom. Okay, reasonably happy with that. Now if we have a look at that on a full screen, particularly a data projector, the amount of white there is going to draw our eye away, which isn't a great thing to have. So we can change the background and the background color, and let's simply click on the page background, and if you want to have black, single click on this. In this case it already is black, and you can move your selection around. If you come all the way up here, you can also end up getting different hues and colors as well. Not going to recommend that. Generally it tends to work better with either black or white, and rather than adding extra distractions, but sometimes your triptychs can work with a different color, but for this one I'm going to stick with black and white, and I'd like a tiny stroke of border around the edge. Again, if you put a border on that's too thick, it can end up drawing your eye away from the actual images. So I'm going to make sure that it's really thin, and in this case it's as thin as it can be. It's 0.2 point. Okay, so that's pretty much the overall look that I want for this particular triptych, but I've just noticed something. I've got this cherub looking kind of this way, lady looking this way, but then the picture of the two of them is off to one side and getting pretty much ignored. So what you can do is you can change the order. Make sure you deselect all of them, and then just simply drag the images around in the film strip, and then hold down Shift and select all three again, and that gives us our finished product. And then you simply click Print to File, and in this case I'm just going to label it Test 3, and then what we'll need to do is re-import that into Lightroom or Photoshop and finish the resizing off to make sure that our maximum width is the 1620 pixels across for projected. But I'm going to presume that you already know how to do that piece, so rather than take up your time. And that's pretty much it. So if we grab the image is sitting somewhere on my desktop, it's always fun if I can find it. There we go. And you can't see it because it's projecting on the wrong screen. Sorry about that, it's going to have to be in my Windows viewer. In this case, the border that we had added is now too thin, so I need to go back and play with that. It obviously showed up thicker in Lightroom than I thought it was. So, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how to do triptychs if you've just got Lightroom.